Ladies and gentlemen, guys and girls, so sorry for the late start today. We had some technical issues between me and Aiden. It happens. Unfortunately, things happen, but it's okay. And unfortunately, that means this show will be a half hour long, but we'll make up the other half hour the next show. So sorry about that, guys. Things happen. It's life. So anyway, on today's episode of The Age of Warfare, we're going to be talking about the new country west of England called Wales. And there's actually some interesting tidbits about the country of Wales and their history and all that. And so we're going to talk about it. But before we get started, as always, how are you doing today, my friend, Mr. Cordier?
I'm doing all right. It's as we discussed, it's quite dark over here because it's winter time in the UK, so it's been dark for about an hour already. So it's one of those things. If you don't see daylight very often, and we're not we're quite north, but we're not that far north. But yeah, apart from that, and living like a vampire at the moment, everything's going tickety-boo.
All right, yeah. So, here is sunny as heck, so you might be seeing some sunlight here, pretty much.
Yeah. So live vicariously through your video.
So anyway, let's jump into the subject. The country of Wales. Even though Wales is part of the United Kingdom, but there's not a difference between Wales and England. And because some people think that Wales and England are the same thing because they're in the United Kingdom, but they couldn't be any more different, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it's. I think from the get-go we should do the whole UK and England and Great Britain thing. So the United Kingdom is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland, the fact that Northern Ireland is named will show you that it's Great Britain and Northern Ireland. It includes some of the islands around us. We'll go into that because they're not relevant right now. But Great Britain is literally the big bit of land where you've got England, Scotland, and Wales as the countries. And it's the United Kingdom because they're all kingdoms that united under one crown, which all happened, that we will discuss about. That's medieval history, where they all got united. And then it wasn't until it was England and Wales up until 1707, I think it is, with where Scotland then became part of Great Britain. So Wales has always been a separate country, but and that's why we're discussing it. So that's our setup there.
Yeah, but and you told me, Aiden, that you're from Wales, right?
Yeah, I was born in Cardiff, which is the capital of Wales, on the south coast, where most of the population lives because the centre's made of mountains. So there aren't many people that live there.
I like the Welsh flag. That's what I like about Wales as well. The flag is, if you see on the upper right corner, we got the flag of Wales with the dragon. And I think there was an interesting story about the dragon. I was looking it up. There's a reason why they have the dragon. That particular animal on the flag of Wales.
It's connected to the English dragons, a white dragon. And this goes back. This even got connections to Byzantium actually, because they had the dragon standards as well. So the white dragon was used by one of the Saxon kingdoms. Look that up, Angel. We'll find out which Saxon kingdom it is. And they were. It must have been Mercia because of when Mercia and Wales are. It could well have been Wessex. I can't remember which.
I think it was Wessex. Yes,
it was Wessex. So
yes,
that
Wessex.
also makes sense because England grew out of essentially Wessex fighting back against the Vikings, and that sort of formed England. But then there's the mythology about the white dragon and the red dragon fighting each other, as well. And it's supposed the red dragon sleeping under Snowdon. There's a whole big thing about.
In fact, the Wessex was called the Earldom of Wessex. The Earldom. When we have earls instead of kings, you had the earls.
Yeah, before the country was formed, obviously.
Yeah.
slightly
And,
lower rank.
and the thing about Wales is that a lot of people in Wales, they regard themselves as the modern day Celts. You know, they don't really consider themselves, you know, how can I say, Anglo-Saxons. They consider themselves Celts. You know, they don't regard themselves as Saxons or Angles.
Yeah, so that partly comes through. So I've talked quite a lot on this show about what we term as the Celtic fringe, of as everything as you go through history, you get these waves of migration from the east that come through Europe and push everything up against the Atlantic seaboard. So you then get these places that are on the edge, and Cornwall and Brittany. So Brittany is part of France, and Cornwall's part of England, but they've got a lot in common with Wales, because it's that different culture where they got pushed to the edge. There's a lot of later history in the Victorian history and the Industrial Revolution because of a lot of the mining in Wales, where you get this build up and the movement of people from England to Wales. So you get this north, as any country, you get a north-south divide. But if you go to the north of Wales, they're more Welsh, as it were. But on the south coast as well, you've got this mix of it's if you're coming from another country, it's England with funny accents type of thing. It's until you go out of those southern cities, you don't really see the true Wales. However, if you go to Pembrokeshire, that's proper. Pembrokeshire is absolutely beautiful. I have my stag do in Pembrokeshire as well. Absolutely, most of it's a country park as well. A lot of the west of Wales is country parks. And they've kept the beaches all on the west coast and all of that. But the thing about it is the Welsh were separate in the same way that Cumbria is. And everyone forgets about Cumbria not actually being Anglo-Saxon properly as well.
Right.
It's one of the areas that was brought into it. When we were talking about William Wallace came from Cumbria. As well. If you watch the Last Kingdom, as well, Cumbria comes into it as like Cornwall. It's one of those Celtic edges to the Isles because it's on the west.
I played Age of Empires 2, and you played the tutorial campaign. When they do make a reference that William Wallace came from Wales, you know, he was in Welsh Nan.
Because it's very weird because the name Wales actually is an Anglo-Saxon name. This is you get this in Belgium as well with the Walloons as well. So if you see that, I went to school in Wallingford. This Wal name is a Saxon word for foreigner. So Wales is the land of the foreigners because the Anglo-Saxons named it. One of the reasons for that is Wales never truly united. Wales had lots of princes, and there was a whole massive thing. It would end up split into 4 big princedoms, where they were trying to have a king come out of those. But obviously, being English, we interfered with that quite a lot. And over time, they never really amalgamated as much until under British rule, and that happened really early on. We're talking sort of Norman invasion. As well, which is why Wales is full of beautiful castles. As the Normans went and built castles all around the populated areas, they didn't even finish building them. There's a famous castle to northwest Wales where it wasn't even finished because it was such a big project. But that was to control the Welsh population, as it were, because there was a lot of rebellion. One of the interesting things, though, if you look at the English royalty, and this is one of the weird things about Great Britain, is the last time there was a truly English king was 1066 before the Normans turned up.
Correct.
So you have the English kings, and then the Normans turn up and they take over, and you get into Plantagenets and all of that. Once you get there, they slowly become more English again, and over time, you can then say that they're English kings because of everything that goes on. But then you get the Tudors. The Tudors come from Ap Tudor, which is Welsh. Is actually a Welsh dynasty from Pembrokeshire, if I remember rightly. Actually, it's weird; it keeps coming back today. So you get the Tudor king, so you get that as well. And then the Act of Union with Scotland was because we ran out of monarchs, and that's where we get the Stuarts from. Then people generally know the stuff after that. We then became a republic in the middle of that, had the Stuarts back, got bored with them, had a Belgian, got bored with them, had some Germans, and then it's all gone on from there. And that's now modern history. But this is where the Isles have been so connected, but it shows the Welsh aristocracy were up there with everyone else. It wasn't the Wales got conquered and now you're just stay over there. I mean, the Welsh people, yes, because there were a string of stupid laws.
Right.
Like you couldn't shoot a Welshman on a Sunday if he was walking down a hill or whatever. The whole concept of that was it was similar to like when you look at William Wallace, that raiding between Scotland and England was also a thing with Wales as well.
Yeah.
So it's a separate kingdom, but never really truly had a king until quite late on, and then that was just a mere formality at that point, unfortunately. As you go to Offa's Dyke, so one of the big things that the Saxons did was to demarcate the edge of territory. You build a big ditch, it's still a word used in the Netherlands as well. The dikes were basically, it's all about controlling water flow. If you go over to the Netherlands, that's why they're still used. Whereas the Saxons often used them to demarcate the edge. And Offa's Dyke, Offa was a Mercian king, and it's named Offa's Dyke, but it wasn't quite all Offa. It's standard historical things. The guy's name's on it isn't truly the person who did it all. But it's literally where you go up from Bristol, and you go up, and you've got the water comes in, and it narrows down to a river, and that demarcates the edge of Wales in the south. And then where that starts petering out, they built this massive ditch as well, to say this is Wales and this is not Wales. You lot stay over there. So the demarcation of Wales as a country was a massive thing. This then goes even further into the Marcher Lords. So the Marcher Lords were medieval lords who, you get this in lots of countries as well. A Marcher Lord is a lord who's on the edge of your territory against someone that you would fight against quite a lot through raids and things. The edge territories against Wales, those lords were known as the Marcher Lords. Right. They protected England from them. You have the same thing against Scotland. You go to any other European country, you've got the same thing on all of their borders as well. So Wales was treated as a separate country, even though it was part of the country, and it stands in really good stead as it was early on. Hence why the heir to the throne in our royal succession is always the Prince of Wales. The person who is put in charge as the Prince of Wales, because it is seen as the biggest, most important one of those territories, and it's one of the only ones where there is the Prince of, rather than the Duke or Earl or Viscount or any of the other titles comes in. Right. It's one of the ones that retains that as well. It's that Wales is weird, the fact that it's been so integrated with England from even before the conception of England being a thing, but it's still a separate country. It's quite bizarre how that's
that's what I'm saying, right? Yeah. Now let's go back in history a little bit, because obviously Wales is part of the British Isles, and who had the British Isles in 300 AD? The Romans. Wales was all. The Romans still stayed in Wales for over 350 years, and for the most part, it was a peaceful rule. There was a fun fact though. The Cambria. The word Cambria was actually given to them by Rome. It's actually a Roman name. It's derived from the Latin word for Wales, which was Cambria. It dates back to Roman times when Wales was part of the Roman province of Britannia. And I don't know if you heard of this emperor, Magnus Maximus. He was actually the emperor of Wales.
He's
Magnus Maximus.
One of the best names, because it's like it's a proper Roman name. I'm big, so I'm Magnus Maximus. It's like that is a hardcore
name.
Yeah.
But
that gets into the quite late emperors as well, because you end up with what's his name from York, who was crowned in York. There's and this is, as we were saying, obviously it's so integrated in everything that happens in the Isles as well. It's not just that little country to the west of the Isle as well. As you're saying, it's like with the Romans, it was a very important province. Even before the Romans, if some of the earliest Roman artifacts from their trade with the Celts before Britannia became a province are found on the south coast of Wales as well. They go up to Cornwall, and then they go around Cornwall, and then up, and then it's into the south of Wales. The amount of resources there, of course, they were going to trade with them. And as I said, I was born in Cardiff, which is Caerdydd, Caer, castles. You've got, if you look at the names, the amount of them that are actually from root Roman words as well. Is quite interesting. It shows that they were there and doing stuff. Right? So carry on. Sorry, I was just there. Interesting side point that showed the Romans were so integrated with the Welsh.
Yeah, and the thing about Cornwall, it was that it was so separated from England. It was like a separate entity from England. You know,
and they still want to be. It's a few people in the pub do. Mebian Kerno is the call for the independence of Cornwall as well. You see a little black flag with a white cross. That is the flag of Cornwall as well. Separation. But it's interesting though, isn't it, that when we go back to the Romans, these places that have this idea of this separation tend to come out as places that had initial trade with the Roman Empire before becoming a province as well. And it shows that there's a measure of resources and autonomy in that area to start off with. Because the Saxons, it took a long time for the Saxons to take out Cornwall as well, which is why they just allied themselves to the Welsh rather than trying to conquer them. It's like, I know our mountains aren't massive, but if you're going to go somewhere mountainous, Wales, it's like barely conquerable. You can just about do the edges. Hence why all of the castles and major settlements that have connections elsewhere are on the edges. Go into the centre of it, like, good luck. You're not taking that.
And I was also reading overnight, last night before the show, that the Welsh DNA of a Welsh person is very unique for the rest of the British Isles. It says that the Welsh may be the most ancient inhabitants of Britain. That they may be older than even the Saxons or the other Celtic tribes that were there. They might be the oldest inhabitants. There was a project that surveyed 2,000 people in rural areas of the country and found that the Welsh are genetically distinct from the rest of mainland Britain.
Yes. So there's a brilliant book by Brian Sykes called The Blood of the Isles. It's quite old now, and the research has moved on. I was reading this when I was at university. This is 20 years ago now. So obviously it's moved on.
Yeah.
But if you map blood groups, just go and map blood groups of the British Isles, and you go back, and this is where we get the ancestors. The original is 7, and I can't remember the other number of people we're all descended from. The O blood group is more common in Celtic areas. So I'm an O blood group. My wife is O as well. We're both O negative, hence my son being O negative as well. So, but my mum is as well. And if you look into our family trees, it's my mum's side that's got the Irish part in it. My mum's name my mum's name technically Welsh because it's a Celtic name. We've got a lot of Celtic names. My wife's side of the family. There's Irish in there as well, hence the O coming through as a blood group. That's that's a very Celtic thing. So from that standpoint, then you look at Wales, and it's what I was saying about how you've got these mountains you can't conquer. So people conquer the edge, and then people go to the centre. So every time you get a successive invasion, so you think about it, the Celts invade, then you're going to get the pockets of the people there before. It's the Beaker people that I've talked about previously. We don't know huge amounts about them, but that massive, when we're talking about the Saxons and the Vikings moving through and the collapse of the Roman Empire, that all happened obviously under the Romans moving through and taking the areas. Before that, you had the Celts moving through, and people think, oh, well, the Celts are the indigenous people. They're not. They were a previous invasion against the previous indigenous people. But you're going to get this, the people on the fringes are going to live in the harsher areas because there's no need to try and push them out of those areas, because you don't want those, because those very early invasions aren't like an invasion these days where it's I want to take everything. It's I want this good bit, go live over there, I really don't care. So you end up with this the valleys in Wales being one of these places where you get this. So these DNA markers that you have come through stronger as well, because you also get this it's very sort of like insular. Like you get it in the States. If you look at a state in the US, you look into the rural areas, and then you go to the center of the state and look at those rural areas, you will be starting to get, even though it's only been a few hundred years, that there is starting to get genetic markers for those areas. And it isn't inbreeding because there's a lot of people, but it's that sort of tribal idea of this is this group of people. So you get this higher incidence in different areas of this thing. And Wales obviously is that place in the UK where you get that happen. And it's, as I said, Cumbria, very harsh area, very similar to Wales, and you get similar things happening there as well. Ireland gets it because it's really out of the way and has very harsh areas on the west of it. But there's one of the only other places is Cheddar. So Cheddar of cheese fame. Cheddar Gorge. Cheddar Man's one of the oldest skeletons found in the UK, and that's pre-Celt as well. However, if you look at the genetics of the British Isles are absolutely insane, because you can see these markers going back when you go into rural areas. The teacher, when they found it, they tested the DNA of the locals just to see was this person from their area, and they found an almost direct descendant of Cheddar Man teaching at the local school. So when you go down to these small rural areas, you find that while the top people and the people and even down to the lords and aristocracy tend to change, the local people, local farmers, the average person tends to stick around and be the same. They've just got someone else in charge. But then when you get to Wales, it was being in charge of those people was a nominal, you're in charge. You're in charge of this area. It's just mountains with a few people in it. I'm not going to do anything to it. I'm just going to let them do what they do. You end up getting this more, they're not as integrated with the outside area, purely by the fact of geography. So you end up keeping this genetic marker.
You know what Wales reminds me of? It reminds me of the relationship between Puerto Rico and the mainland United States. It kind of makes sense. I need to kind of I see some similarities, like Puerto Rico and the United States. Like we're Americans, but yet we have our own distinct culture that's very distinct. Just like Wales is very distinct from England.
Yeah. That's a really, really good analogy as well.
Right.
And that's from a modern perspective.
Right.
So if you think about it, so Puerto Rico being part of the US, as it were, that's only been a couple of hundred years, realistically.
Right, exactly.
And you've already got that really obvious distinction coming through.
The only difference is we're actually part of the United States. We're not an independent country. that's pretty much the only difference. But everything else kind of works out because we celebrate different holidays here. Like Three Kings Day, we celebrate that here. That's a thing here, right? So or what you guys call it starts with an E. That many Christians celebrate Three Kings Day, January 6th.
Oh, yes, I know the name for it, but it's not coming to me right now.
Yeah.
Christianity got so many things with an E in it. That's weird.
Yeah, but here we call it Three Kings Day. That's what we call it here. So that's what we call it.
Yes, it's linked to the people termed the three wise men.
The three wise men, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Epiphany, something like that. That's what it's called.
It's because they were Melchior.
But what I'm trying to say is we celebrate as a big holiday here in Puerto Rico, but when you go to the States, it's just a normal work day. They don't celebrate it out there. It's not a big thing out there.
Yeah. And it's oddly enough with Wales, there's I couldn't, apart from obviously Saints' Days, there's not really that much of a difference in holidays. Obviously, Scotland celebrates New Year slightly differently. That's the only real big different one in the UK. Whereas Wales, I can't think of. There's differences in how people celebrate.
So it brings me to my final question of the day. So, despite the differences, do you think all the countries in the United Kingdom are integrated, or you could say even though the different countries, they're still the United Kingdom, and they operate pretty much the same way?
Yeah, it's I like to think of it as siblings. It's the old thing. The siblings will be constantly fighting. Every time you see siblings, they may not say a nice word to each other, but they're there for each other. They're always there, and they've got those similarities, and they've got more in common than they like to think that they do. Especially as a bit that we'll get into when we talk about Wales again, of how the formation of southern Wales and the mining industry.
When the next show we'll get into that.
There is huge connection. Then, as I talked about, you go to the rural areas, there's differences. If you go to northern Wales, for example, they are definitely, there's areas that are not integrated. I've had friends walk into pubs in northern Wales, and even though they were speaking English, they will switch to Welsh because they know you're English, so that you can't understand, even though they were originally speaking English when you weren't there. It's there's still this anger about the English. It's like the Scottish anger about the Saxons. And it's like it's like 1,000 years ago. Get over it, type thing. But if you look at the Industrial Revolution, there was a bigger reason in Wales for that as well. So absolutely beautiful country, absolutely. So it was amazing. That's the other advantage of not being able to conquer it properly, is no one went in and absolutely destroyed the countryside. So it's all still there looking nice as well. So you can actually go and look at how if you want to look at how England would have looked before we had massive modern industry, you go to the protected areas of Wales. That's exactly how it would look. And it is the home of the Druids, especially if you go up to
the Druids,
go to Anglesey as well. That goes back to the Romans as well. And there's that distinct, we are the remains of the Celtic people, hence the laws of the Welsh language revival laws, that it has to be taught in schools, and lessons are held in Welsh schools. So you have to learn Welsh to stop the language dying out as well, because most people speak English, which is why if you go to Wales, the signs are in Welsh, not English, and here's one that you're not going to be able to pronounce. Look up, so motorway services. Look up how that is written in Welsh. It starts with a G and it's unpronounceable, completely unpronounceable as well. but you notice it when you're in Wales. It's not the accent. The further you go into Wales and the more rural you go into Wales,
Yeah.
it's not just the signs. It's you'll notice people speaking Welsh more. Like
Yeah.
in the queue in Tesco's. Obviously, round here, I'll be in a queue in Tesco's and people are speaking Urdu because I'm in an incredibly multicultural part of the country. That we've got sort of more. Our languages are from the later immigration, sort of Victorian era and onwards. We don't have that early language. I don't go and find people speaking Celtic languages when they're in Tesco's. Whereas you go to Wales, people will be there speaking Welsh. You'll Welsh friends, and you'll be having a conversation with them in English. I'll turn around to another friend and have a conversation in Welsh. It's nothing with like you are. It's like there's two languages that you can switch between.
Right.
But the interesting bit is how old Welsh is as a language. It's super old. That's another thing we'll get into next time as well, because that's one of those markers showing how old they are.
Yeah, guys, I'm sorry to say that is going to be the end of the show, but we're going to be back in a couple of weeks to go to continue this series, because there's a lot more to talk about. I am so sorry for this abbreviated show today, but we had some technical difficulties. It happens, but I'm glad we were able to get some half the show in. So I hope you guys will join us in a couple of weeks. And to all my American viewers and all of American viewers, happy Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving. Yeah. I thought it was supposed to start at 12, but Aiden has some computer issues, and we had to start anew with Nate. So and unfortunately, I got a lot of things to do now, so we have to get off. But but we'll be back in a couple of weeks at our normal time. Hopefully, hopefully things work out properly, and we'll continue the series of Wales. And if you missed anything, you could watch the replay. So, So anyway, this has been Tertullian and Antinous Maximus. That has been Negate, Aiden Cordier. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks as we continue to discover the wonders of the country of Wales. So take care, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Happy Thanksgiving in advance to all my American viewers. And take it easy, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.